All right, so welcome to quadratic functions. So in this unit, we're going to be dealing with parabolas, quadratic functions. In the first couple sections, we're going to be dealing with different forms of quadratic formula, quadratic functions. So the first thing we need to look at is what standard form is. So standard form is right here. It is ax squared plus bx plus c. And we're going to be doing a lot with that. Intercept form, that's when we have an a value out front, and then we have two binomials. We have x minus a number, and then x minus another number. So those are going to be the intercepts on the x-axis. And then the vertex form, we're going to learn more about later, but we're going to use it today. So you have an a value up front, and then x minus a number, quantity squared, and then you have a plus k value. So like I said, later on we're going to learn different things about these different formats, but what we're doing today is we're looking at converting every form to standard form. So we need to get comfortable doing that, and it's simple algebra that we've been doing for the past couple years. So in example 1, determine the direction of the parabola and identify the y-intercept of the function. So we're going to tell if the parabola is opening up or if it's opening down, and then we're going to look at the y-intercept. So in this first problem, we have a quadratic in intercept form. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to multiply these two together. So we're going to go x times x is x squared. And then x times negative 3 would give us a negative 3x. And then the 1 times the x, that would be a positive x. And then 1 times negative 3, that gives us negative 3. So when we want to put this into standard form, we just combine like terms and we go high exponent to low. So we're going to put the squared term first. So we have x squared, and then put the x's together, we end up with a negative 2x, and then a negative 3. So what we're looking at here is the y-intercept is always this c value right here. This is always the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is going to be negative 3 for the y value. Now this could be written also, you will see this, as a 0 for the x and then a negative 3 for the y, because we know x is 0 on the y-axis. So if you're looking for a coordinate, that's what it's going to be. Or we could just say y equals negative 3 for the y-intercept. As far as the direction, if it opens up or opens down, we look to the a value. So the a value right out front of the x squared, that tells us if it goes up or down. So if it is a positive number, we're opening up. And if it's a negative number, we're going to be opening down. So if we look out here, we have a positive 1 here, so it is going to open up. So second example, little bit different. I mean, we got more going on here, but it's the same format. We're going from intercept form to standard form. So we're going to kind of forget about this negative out here for a moment. Go ahead and multiply these together. So 3r times 6r, that's going to be 18r. 3r times 18r squared. 3r times 5 is 15r. And then 2 times 6r is 12r. And then 2 times 5 is 10. So we have to remember, we have all of this in parentheses, and that negative is still out there. Do not forget about the negative. So now we can combine like terms and also distribute the negative at the same time. So all of the terms are going to turn to the opposite sign. So we have an 18r squared, but it's negative. And then if we put the 15 and the 12r together, we get 27r and make it negative. And then this positive 10 becomes a negative 10. Now we're in standard form. So looking at the y-intercept is going to be a 0, negative 10. or like I said, y equals negative 10. And then the a value out front is a negative 18. So negative means we are going to open down. So here's the checkpoint. Go ahead and pause and try that. All right, so determine the direction of the parabola, identify the y-intercept, just like we did in the examples. So this time, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to take this 2. I'm going to distribute into one of these, not both. You could follow like we did the one with the negative up above and just multiply the 2 binomials together and then multiply everything by 2. Either way works. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this first binomial by 2. So that gives us a 4x minus 14. And then we write the second binomial. So again, we only distribute the 2 into one of the binomials. If you multiply the 2 binomials together first, then you would multiply everything by 2 at the end. Now sometimes that's easier to deal with. You're dealing with smaller numbers. But now we go ahead and multiply like we did. So 4x times 2x is going to give us an 8x squared. 4x times 7, 28x. Now negative 14 times 2x is a negative 28x. And then negative 14 times 7 is going to be a negative 98. Now if we simplify this down into standard form, we have a positive 8x squared. This 28 and negative 28, that cancels. And then we have a minus 98. So the middle term dropped out. Now we can identify the y-intercept to be a 0, negative 98. And the a value is positive, so that opens up. Okay. Example 2, doing the same thing. We have 2 binomials multiplying together. We have a special case here because it is a positive 3 inside and a negative 3. So we'll see what happens with that. You might remember this from Algebra 1. So x times x is x squared, and then we have a 3x, and then a negative 3x. So the middle term cancels out whenever you have opposite signs of the same number. So now we can just do 3 times negative 3 would give us a negative 9. So standard form is x squared minus 9. Y-intercept would be 0, negative 9. And the parabola is going to open up because we have a positive 1 out front. Then this next one we are going to skip over because it's like the other examples above. And go ahead and try the checkpoint, pause the video. So this next one, so we have a t minus 4 quantity squared with a 1/2 on the outside. So remember what we have to do with this, we have to treat the t minus 4 quantity squared as, I'm going to write this out so we can all see it. Whenever you have a quantity squared, that just means we're taking that thing and multiplying it by itself. And then the 1/2 is out here. So we have a problem just like we did up in the other examples. So t times t times negative 4, and then negative 4 times t, that would give us a negative 8t. Negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. And we have to multiply all this by a 1/2. So the 1/2 distributes in. So we have 1/2 t squared we have a negative 4t, and we have a positive 8. Y-intercept is going to be 0, 8. And we have a positive 1/2 out front, so that tells us we are opening up. All right, example 3. Now we're dealing with the vertex form of a quadratic. So we're going to treat it the same way we did before, is that we have a quantity squared. We're going to multiply this thing by itself. Please do not make the common mistake of squaring both of these numbers and having only 2 terms, because we know we should have 3 terms at the end after we're done. So that negative 13 has to drop down too, don't forget about that. So when we multiply this out, we're going to have x times x is x squared. We have x times 6, and then 6 times x. That's going to give us a 12x. 6 times 6 is 36. And then this minus 13 drops down. And then we combine like terms. So x squared plus 12x. And then 36 minus 13 would give us a positive 23. So y-intercept is 0, 23. And it's opening up because the front a value is positive. And then the next one would be, so I'm going to skip the step of writing it because we know we are doing w minus 8 times w minus 8. So we can just have this half out front. And I'm going to put the product of the binomials in parentheses. So that negative 20 is on the outside. So we have to follow order of operations. So we get w squared. So the w times the negative 8 and then the negative 8 times w, we can just double that into a negative 16w. And then negative 8 times negative 8 is a positive 64. Now we have to multiply by 1/2 to these terms only. The negative 20 is on the outside. So 1/2 w squared. Get 1/2 of the middle one, which would be negative 8. And then 1/2 of this would be 32. And now we can drop the negative 20 down. And we can see that these are going to go together when we write it in standard form. So we have 1/2 w squared minus 8w, and then a plus 12. So 0, 12. Positive 1/2, opening up. So if that were a negative 1/2, we would say it opens down. Go ahead and try the checkpoint and pause the video. All right, so we're going to do this negative on the outside. We're going to write the product of the 2 binomials in parentheses, and then the plus 4 on the outside. So we get t squared. We get a negative 6t and a plus 9. So distribute the negative through first before we deal with the 4. So negative t squared plus 6t minus 9 plus 4. Combine these like terms here to get the negative 5 on the end. So negative t squared plus 6t minus 5. Y-intercept is our c value, which is negative 5. And we have a positive 1 out front, so that's going to open down. All right, so last example here. We have a hovercraft takes off from a platform. Its height in meters, t seconds after takeoff, is modeled by h of t equals this function. So what is the height of the hovercraft at the time of takeoff? Okay, so let's think about this. At the time of takeoff, how many seconds have went by? 0 seconds. So we need to find out the y-intercept of this function. So we can go ahead and convert this to standard form and then look at the c value for the height, the initial height. So negative on the outside, we get t squared. T times 3 is 3t, and then negative 11 times t. So negative 11 and 3 would be negative 8t. And then negative 11 times 3 would be negative 33. So we have that negative on the outside. So we could distribute that. So we get a positive 33 as our c value. So we can look at the y-intercept here. And of course, we could have just looked that this would have been a positive 33. We really didn't have to write out the standard form because it did not ask. So all we have to say is the height at takeoff when t is 0 is going to be 33, and our units is meters. And that is found from, again, our y-intercept. So that is the end of the video.